Hello. Happy Friday, the 13th, Maxine.
The 13th. It's Creepy Friday, everyone.
It's Creepy Friday. And if you all saw my Friday post, you know today is all about the deepfake and synthetic identity report. And I think it aligns to a Friday the 13th theme because it's like those are just really creepy entities out there. And the report cover, Maxine,
It's creepy.
it's a
People
little
have
bit
complained
creepy.
it's creepy, but deep fakes are creepy. Synthetic identities are creepy, right? I mean, they can be fun, but they can be cool, but I think they're also fundamentally creepy. So,
Yeah. But I've heard amazing things from people about the report. It launched last week when we were at Identiverse in Las
yeah,
Vegas. So
it's
many good
amazing.
things about the report, so many excellent conversations. It's now generally available. Anyone can go out and download it.
Yeah, there's a little QR code on the bottom of the screen down there, so feel free to download it while you're watching us. Just get your phone out. If
Yeah,
you're
feel free
watching
to
on your
download it.
computer,
We're going
yeah.
to be doing a deep dive into this report aligned to the Friday update that I did today. Let's kick off with what's made this report possible, really.
Yeah, our sponsors, our fantastic sponsors. We're really excited. We're developing new relationships. We've got some really, very identifiable brand names in the industry, and we're really excited. And we really appreciate the folks that are participating. We have a new partner, KYC AML Guide. We have two new real industry association sponsors, the FIDO Alliance and Secure Technology Alliance. We're just really excited about the participation we're seeing from across the industry.
It was really good to see new sponsors for this report, those that hadn't been in the report before. And then it's always great to see the returning sponsors. And
Yeah,
um, uh,
and
uh,
we get to visit lots of our sponsors at Identiverse. That was amazing too.
yeah, that was very fun to just hear from the people in the booth about how excited they are to be in the report and just the feedback they're getting from their customers, and then the content they're doing on LinkedIn to talk about their classifications and they're featuring in the report. So it was
Yeah,
amazing. Well,
one of the sponsors basically told me that they had used the crash course section of the report to send to their PR agency and said, "Here, read this, and then you'll understand what we do." So that was really super terrific to get that kind of feedback.
as they should, as they should. Well, let's get into some of the meaty content of the report. I found this particular graphic and chart really educational. The synthetic identity fraud attacks and how you broke those out. Could you talk us through the
I
details
love this
around?
chart. I spent my life trying to make complex technology understandable to people, and just to, keep for people to keep in mind, these reports are targeted towards the relying parties, the end user community, the folks within organizations that need to deploy this technology that are not technology experts. So we created tools to try to make it make sense to them. And what this particular chart does is it basically gives you context for understanding all the different ways that deep fakes and synthetic identity and authentic identity, what we refer to as authentic identity in the report, and counterfeit identity, all the ways that those different types of identity elements can be combined to create fake, synthetic, deep faked identities. And it's really important because most people, when they're thinking about it, they're focused on the key problem that they have, or the way that synthetic identities are being used that they understand in a clear way and have clear experience with. But if you're going to deploy this technology, you need to be thinking about all the different ways these attacks can come into play. So even though you may be starting off with a specific attack, you need to really be thinking about all the types of attacks and being able to talk to vendors about how they solve all of those types of problems.
Yeah, I like how you broke it into full synthetic and partial and hybrid. A lot of times in the market, it's either you're impersonation or you're in synthetic, and
Yeah, it
sometimes
doesn't work that way.
I hear terms like fabrication, manipulation, compilation, where they're different. But I really love how this has been broken out in the report. So
Yeah, and again, it's
kudos on that.
designed for people that are not technology experts to be able to make sense of it.
Let's go into another diagram that I found really interesting in the report, and we'll zoom us. We're getting even smaller as the diagrams
I
get
know we're
bigger.
tiny, we're tiny little heads. So
Which is
this is
the
really, it says
yeah,
identity verification process, but it really works for verification or authentication. And again, this is sort of the remote scenario that people are most familiar with. And the whole idea with this one is to say, okay, here's this kind of generalized process, where are the vulnerabilities to these attacks, right? So you have this chart where you can say, okay, what are all the different mixing, matching ways that people can attack me with deepfakes and synthetic identities using authentic and counterfeit identity elements? And then it's like, okay, where are all the places where the vulnerabilities are? And so we define, sort of the process and the vulnerabilities. And then within the report, we talk about the attack vectors for each of these vulnerabilities, and then we talk about countermeasures that can be applied. So again, this is empowering the folks that are thinking about deploying this technology to really think about it in terms of the total overall context within their enterprise.
Yeah. I like how this one connects to the one we just looked at, the diagram on synthetics, because you could see how those can be used in different parts of the journey. I shared this diagram when I went to Marketplace Risk. I had printed it on a flyer and shared it with a few marketplaces, and they definitely found it interesting because it brings up thoughts that maybe they hadn't thought of around how these attacks can be perpetrated.
Again, it's really about empowering folks that want to deploy this technology who are not technology experts, to give them information and knowledge so that they can ask the right questions, that they can figure out how best to work with the vendors and what types of vendors they really want to engage with.
Let's zoom out a little bit further and go into the Prism landscape. In particular for the deepfake and synthetic identity report, it's different than the previous reports. Can you talk about some of the categories and how you shape those?
So one of the things that kind of makes me crazy about some of the models that are used in the industry is they're static. And people use the same models for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and then they try to fit the players in the industry into that model. And what we believe is that this is an evolving ecosystem, and depending on the lens through which you are viewing it, these beams, as we call them, which are the different, kind of technology and solution spaces within the overall ecosystem, change slightly. So for example, we had, previously we were looking at core, biometric technology as our beam, the light green beam in the upper right corner. But we extended that to be core identity technology in this report, and for looking at deepfakes and synthetic identity. And we have a couple of our new sponsors in there that are folks that are totally focused on deepfake detection. We changed the center of the Prism. In previous reports, it was really about organizations that were touching each of the other beams. In this one, we really looked at organizations that were trailblazers, that really had significant vision in advance of the general market in understanding how important deepfakes and synthetic identity were going to be to the evolution of the identity marketplace.
Yeah, and I have an overlay slide here for the types of companies.
Yeah, there it is. Right.
Can you talk through?
Over 220 companies were evaluated in this report, and as we like to say, it's not pay to play. Anybody can be in there. You see all those little text strings. It's hard to see, on the screen, but this is a very high res image, so you can pull it out of the report. You can download it off of LinkedIn, and you can really blow it up and get a really good view of all those different companies. And of course, the companies that sponsor get their logos in, not just a text string. But and we have good representation across the different beams, so we're really excited about that. And
certainly download them.
Companies, the placement represents the main beam where we believe they live. Although, what we'll see in the next slide is that not everybody is just really stuck in one location.
Yeah, I highly recommend you download this because it is only like a 1080 resolution, and I can disappear behind it. It's like a floating picture.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a high res version that's available. So
let's go on to the lens. I think you were alluding to that as sort of the next piece of the puzzle.
So one of again, these reports are targeted towards people that are not technology experts. And so what we try to do is to frame the role of digital identity in the enterprise, whether that's a public or private sector enterprise, in terms of the key strategic drivers for enterprises in the 21st century: digital transformation, cybersecurity, customer user experience, privacy. And so what we do is we contextualize, again, digital identity in the way in ways that it can be used to meet these strategic challenges. So we contextualize it with these challenges, and then we talk about how biometric centric digital identity can address each of these significant challenges for the enterprise. And this is really important because digital identity is a strategic component of the enterprise operation. And we really need to be thinking about that. And we shouldn't just be selling into IT or cybersecurity or some identity group that's been cobbled together, on a task force basis. But this should, identity is a strategic component of the evolution of the enterprise, and we need to talk about it that way, and we need to educate the market so they understand that.
Yeah. One of the questions I've seen in the past about the report is how can a company fit in different areas of the landscape, and then how do they talk through their product? And we've got one as an example for the Trailblazer iProve, for
Yes.
how you've done this in the newest reports on.
Yeah. iProve is the center, and this goes back to what I was talking about before about the beam placement, right? Up until this report, this is our 6th report, we've basically located vendors in a single beam. And people said, yeah, I get that's our primary beam, but we really play in other places too. And so what we've done is we created, and you can see this little chart representation up in the upper right corner of not the upper right corner, that's their Prism badge, which indicates, what their status is. This is iProve. They're a refractor because they're in the middle. They're a Trailblazer. But that little chart right below it basically shows you their penetration into each of the beams. So yes, they have a primary beam, which is their core tech provider, but they also play somewhat in the IDV space, somewhat in the authentication space. And so this is a more robust representation. And to give you guys an idea, just again of what a profile looks, this happens to be a half-page profile. This is, this is a sponsorship that you can talk to us about if you want to see your organization in the Prism. We have logo sponsorships, we have these half-page profile sponsorships, and then we have full-page profile sponsorships.
On the luminosity chart or luminosity graph,
Yeah.
Here's a closer view of that. What informs how much they're filled and what's not filled? It's based off of the public information.
So what
and
you
the
see here
briefing?
is this is the entire luminosity graph completely filled in. And for each vendor, what you'll see is basically the number of segments filled in for each beam is based on our assessment of how much penetration they have into that beam. So for each company, you'll see like a primary beam, which is filled in 100%, and then you'll see some number of segments in the other beams where they play.
Excellent. Well, that was what we had to discuss. The report is available to scan the QR code and download it. As we get to the end of the stream today, Maxine, any parting words of wisdom for those watching?
Well, be careful of ladders and black cats today, but also, do download the report. And again, the graphics are available. We want people to share them. I've been posting, all the graphics you're seeing on LinkedIn. You can download them from there, or if if they're not high res enough for your purposes, please reach out to me. Sponsors have access to all of those graphics, but we're happy to share that with the world too. These reports are free to download. We do get a little bit of information from you on the form, but we really want this information, what we believe is really a powerful market education tool, sales development tool for the industry. We want it out there. We want people to share it. We want as many people as possible to read it. So
phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for walking us through it on this special edition of What in the World of Identity. I think that was certainly worthy of a full Friday update. And I wish you a great weekend, Maxine, and everybody else.
Yeah.
See you.
Same here.
Bye.